Bulega in Superpole sessions this year has always looked at his best whenever he's been really smooth. A lot of the time you think he's almost on an in-lap. He's been that smooth on his very fast laps, but this is a place where you've got to be a little bit more scratchy. But he's been able to make it work as well over the course of his longer runs in particular, so that is going to be one of the big strengths for him.
Riding on board with Nicolo Bulega, an opportunity to see in closer detail this Cremona circuit.
Yeah, we can see this section of the track down at turn 8. That's where Canepa had his crash. Turn 9, the right-hander as well, then the short shoot down towards turn 10, and then the long back straight.
Alex Lowe's with an opportunity here to go P1. Of course, his previous lap time deleted, so he hasn't got a qualifying time on the board as yet. Our most recent pole sitter and super pole specialist, 4 consecutive front row starts to his name coming into this round. Alex Lowe's crosses the line. It's good enough for P2. Less than 1/10 of a second down on Andrea Iannone. He was up after sector 2. He was still up after sector 3. Loses a little bit of ground in the final sector, but we're talking tiny margins. Xavi Vierge with a new personal best. 1 minute 28.752 goes on to the front row of the grid alongside Iannone and Lowe's, but Nicolo Bulega displaces Vierge. He's back up into second place and less than 1/10 of a second behind Andrea Iannone. So for the moment at least, Iannone successfully defending that first position.
Yeah, Petrucci on a good lap at the halfway stage as well. He's around about 1/10 of a second down on the Iannone time, so we'll see what we can do through sector 3, just the end of the back straight.
Danilo Petrucci, this is his 20th World SBK round. He's only had 3 front row starts to his name so far. He's never yet been a pole sitter. Did qualify well in both Most and Portimao. He was 3rd on the grid at the Portuguese round. He's only down in 7th position as things stand. Remember, 3 places to be added to his result here this morning as well. Crucial for Petrucci to make progress. He does so, and there's now less than 1/10 of a second between your lead quartet. Iannone, Petrucci, Bulega on the front row. Second row of the grid, Lowe's, Vierge and Locatelli. Third row as things stand, Gerloff, Bassani and Rabat. Alvaro Bautista, we pick him up tracking for a new personal best, but he's down in 12th position and over half a second down on Andrea Iannone's time for top spot. And Alvaro Bautista, who has been out-qualified in every round this season so far by his rookie teammate Nicolo Bulega, who is again his main rival this weekend, finds himself more than half a second down on his teammates and 3 rows back on him on the grid. Bautista does improve, but he's not yet into the 1 minute 28. It's a 1:29.115 from him as Andrea Iannone goes faster still. A 1:28.068 for Iannone, looking good for his first pole in World SBK, but Bulega has the answer to him, and he's into the 1 minute 27s, a 1:27.953 for Nicolo Bulega as he goes down with 2 minutes remaining in this Superpole session.
Yeah, he's gone down, and for Bulega that's going to mean that the yellows are going to come out. A lot of riders are going to be cost their next lap as well, so for Bulega should be that pole position. And Iannone and Petrucci and Audrey Caddy front row, that looks like Lowe's has gone down as well. We saw him at the start of that lap holding his hands up as if he had a bit of a problem, but we'll wait and see what happened to Lowe's. That looks like it's at the end of the lap, but obviously all these yellow flags means that the grid positions we have right now are in all likelihood going to be the grid positions that set the field. So for Alvaro Bautista, it's the 5th row of the grid right now.
It's unfortunate for Andrea Locatelli, who was up after the first completed sector of this lap with 1.5 minutes remaining. Some riders might be able to get in one more lap if those bikes are cleared quickly enough.
It's about the tyre life though as well. A lot of riders are on the 2nd lap on that tyre already. That's why you can see Locatelli cruising down the back straight, just trying to eke out as much time in this session and keep the life in that tyre. But for Bautista, it's going to be critical that he will have time to come across the line one more time, and then he needs to make sure he can just put everything on the tank and give himself the chance.
Nicolo Bulega chasing his first pole position since the season opening Australian round, and he has set the target time at 1 minute 27.953 before his spill.
Yeah, you can see there just a little bit unsettled as you're making that change of direction from 1 into 2. Those corners lead 1 into each other, and we've seen a lot of riders run really right up onto that curb through turn 1 as well. But for Bulega, as we ride on board with him, you could see just that moment for him, and just can't recover from it. But as it is, it's possibly going to work out in his benefit as well. But a great lap to be down in the 27s.
Let's see if anyone can set an improved lap time in the remaining 30 seconds or so. Sam Lowe's is up after Sector 1 on his latest lap.
Just to say about Sam as well, a lot of problems for him this weekend. Had a crash yesterday, it cost himself the second half of FP2, had technical issues this morning as well, limited his running. He was only able to do one fast lap, so to be able to put it up in the second row of the grid right now, that's very impressive.
Andrea Locatelli doing a good job here as well, you'd have to say, up in P5, having been on the third row of the grid at each of the last 4 rounds. P6, his previous best in 2024, so pretty consistent in Superpole, but this looks like being his best of the campaign thus far. Cremona up after the opening sector, second sector for Sam Lowes. It's gone away from him slightly, he's lost a few tenths of a second.
Yeah, tyres are going to be tough to keep in line at this stage. One rider that's really impressive, though, Marcus Reiterberger up there in the third row of the grid, and the leading BMW rider.
Yeah, 7th place for Marcus Reiterberger as the checkered flag falls in the first Superpole session here in Cremona. It's Bulega, Iannone and Petrucci on the front row of the grid. Michael Ruben Rinaldi's just set a new personal best, but it's only good enough for P18. Cremona probably the man to watch at this stage, making his way through now the final sector. Lap's gone away from Sam Lowes. He's 7/10 of a second down. He will remain in 6th position. His brother Alex also on that second row of the grid, either side of Andrea Locatelli. But what can Cremona do here? Making his way through the final sector. He's down in 16th position. He crosses the line, P9. That's a big improvement, particularly in the final sector there.
Yeah, really good stuff there from Iker after the crash. He's been able to bounce back from it. So he's had good speed this weekend and able to deal with that incident during the course of that session. He's actually just been pushed up to the third row with the grid on our time.
Yes, Reiterberger has had his fastest lap time deleted, so that demotes Reiterberger down to P15. Do you know what? That's a position gain for Alvaro Bautista, because he's only qualified in 14th position this morning. Disastrous for Bautista, while his teammate takes pole. Miserable session that for Alvaro Bautista. Brad Ray also promoted onto the third row of the grid, incidentally, by that lap time deletion for Marcus Reiterberger. So perhaps, as we anticipated here in Cremona, a few surprises in the pecking order, to say the least.
Yeah, and those yellow flags were always going to be a factor during this session, because 15 minutes around a short lap, only a couple of flying laps per stint, meant that if there was any sort of instance, it really would be costly. And that's where some riders have been able to react very well from it. Alex Lowes, Javi Vierge were able to get out early on their second stint, and they've been rewarded with the second and third row of the grid. Cremona had a crash, he's on the third row of the grid. That's really positive for Honda, though, after what we saw from them in Magny-Cours, to have 2 bikes up there in the top 3 rows of the grid. That's going to give them a lot of encouragement.
There's a lot more deletions coming in, and Alvaro Bautista has now been promoted up into 13th position. I think Michael van der Mark might have lost a lap time there. So still the positions to be finalised. We'll wait for official confirmation of an unchanged front row. Your top 3 would be Nicolo Bulega, Andrea Iannone and Danilo Petrucci. Of course, Petrucci would then be forced to start from P6 later on, but for statistical purposes, he will keep his front row grid slot. Rarity for him, actually, in the Superbike World Championship. And Andrea Iannone, you never quite know what you're going to get out of the mystery box, do you, with Andrea Iannone, from one race, from one session to the next. But he's pulled it out of the bag quite nicely today. Looked good in free practice 3, delivered another strong lap in Superpole there, only a 10th of a second short of Nicolo Bulega.